if you were to go to Argentina, you'd have a pretty good experience. You wouldn't have very much trouble finding your way around. The people are always very helpful. If you need help finding where a place is, you can just stop on the side of the street and ask somebody una consulta, like say I have a question, or can you help me with something, and they're very, very helpful in pointing you in the right direction wherever you need to go. As far as safety, we were in pretty safe areas, but we were also sisters. The elders I know had some little more dangerous areas. There are lots of people that are under the influence of alcohol, and they're pretty much just, they keep to themselves. They usually won't bother you or anything, and you know to just, kind of stay away from those places where they're probably hanging out. But for the most part, it's very, very safe. We, as sisters, we never got mugged on the mission, never had a problem with that. So most of the transportation in Argentina is done by bus or by walking or by bike. They also have lots of motorcycles and scooters down there, and small cars. We saw very, very little trucks. There were trucks and other vehicles way down south, like in Pico Truncado and areas like that. But the majority of the people just get along by bike or scooter. Us as missionaries, we took the bus whenever we could to get to different areas that were a lot farther in the mission, just to save time. And if you get on a bus, there's just a little card that you charge at different stores, and you put money on it and then get on the bus and then swipe your card. And then usually the bus driver will take off before you get in the seat, so you kind of have to hang on whenever you get on. So down there they kind of have their different foods and items separated into different names. So like a panaderia is where you would find bread and things like that. Then carniceria is where you would find meat. And then supermercado, that's where you would do your normal grocery shopping. And so the people kind of have everything separated down there, it's pretty nice.
When it comes to money, I would say always keep some change with you as well, because we took a lot of buses and trains, and that was always the easiest way to pay for that, because you could have a lot of money and change, unlike here in the States where we don't use dollar coins very much and things like that. That's a lot bigger in Argentina, where having that change is just so convenient to have. You don't have to worry about bills and whatnot. That's kind of the biggest thing on the money, I guess.
Cordoba in itself, I felt like could have been a different country from the rest of Argentina. Like La Rioja and Catamarca were pretty similar, but Cordoba is just like super unique. First of all, in the language, I was so used to being I was in a whole different part in Catamarca and La Rioja my first year of my mission. So going to Cordoba, I just felt like I was learning a new language, because they talk with like a crazy accent, just like super sing-song, like Cordoba no sabe, like this like crazy like accent that's really unique, and I love it. And so that was obviously something really different, was the language. Not only is it a different language in Cordoba, like in downtown, but they also have like their own music. It's this type of cumbia cuarteto that's comes from Cordoba. La Mano Jimenez, he's like the starter up of that. So you always hear the same songs going in the street, and just like it's really unique to Cordoba, those songs alone. So yeah, it was very unique in that way, the culture. Food-wise, they have empanadas Arabic, which I guess they don't have in other parts of Argentina, at least what I've known from other friends who've gone there. But there are these triangle empanadas that are cooked with, the meat is cooked with lemon juice instead of heat, so that's kind of cool. They're super good. Loved the food there. Loved the people. I was expecting when I went down there for them to be, a little more Latino looking, but they're all from Italian descent, so that was interesting. So transportation between the provinces was always bus, double-decker bus, which was great in many ways, besides when the air conditioning didn't work or the heat was strong. Weather-wise in Cordoba, it would rain quite a bit depending on the spot, and when it rained, it rained downpour, and so it got flooded the streets. That was really fun at times. I loved going out in the rain. Big storms. One of my areas, Belleville, there was this huge storm. Huge, like probably 5 foot in diameter trees were just knocked down into the street. So that was kind of cool. Weather-wise, up in Catamarca, never saw rain for 6 months, besides once when it rained quite a bit, but very small amount of rain. It's ridiculously hot there. Got like 53, 54 Celsius, so probably like 120, 130 Fahrenheit. So that was fun. I was there in the summer, and then La Rioja is the same way. It gets pretty hot up there. Cordoba is a little more mild, but definitely kind of like Utah. It's kind of just like really hot in the summer, really cold in the winter. But yeah, it varied where you were in the mission. So downtown Cordoba, it was a little more wealthy than, say, La Rioja or Catamarca. Wealthy as in, I mean, like, I don't know, a little bigger of houses as in like more than one room. So, but like out in La Rioja, houses I usually were about 10 feet by 10 feet, cement, just cinder block houses. And they usually paint them pink or green or yellow or blue. Same, just cookie cutter houses. They're called manzanas. Like they had like little blocks, and all of the blocks were called the same thing. So there's not really any direction or maps. It's kind of just like based on little. It's based on the word, but just that. I don't know, like locations or people. Somebody would just say, "Oh, where the fat lady lives," or where where that dog is, when there's thousands of them. So that was kind of interesting, direction wise. But mostly, yeah, just cinder block houses, smaller. We did a few losas roofs while we were there. We just throw up cement to the second story, and you just dump it on, and it's just these cement houses. So most of the people, I'd say, like the biggest work down there is construction. Most everybody builds their own houses. That's what I saw. It's construction, little maybe some food, like most of it is construction or kioscos, which they have like these little like markets inside of their house, outside of their garage, or not garage, but just outside of their front door, where they just sell a bunch of food and necessities, lighters, things like that. So I guess like the population is somewhere around 1.5 million, I'd say, in downtown. Great majority obviously lives in Buenos Aires, but Cordoba is the second biggest city in Argentina. Once again, like it's known for its cuarteto music and its accent, crazy accent. It's a beautiful city. A lot of medical stuff down there in Cordoba. So I mean, and there was a few universities, even La Rioja or Catamarca. Like there's small ones all over the place. So that's great. It's free to go to, which is nice. Cost of living, if I remember right, I think it was about 400 pesos a month or so. So be when I was there, it was about 4 or 5 pesos to $1. So about $100, $150.
So when they pick apartments for the missionaries, especially for the sister missionaries, they usually try to pick something that's nice. So some of the places where I lived, it was one of the nicest places in town. And we have like a little air conditioning unit, which is great because otherwise you would die. And then in the winter we have a heating unit and blankets, so you shouldn't suffer too much while you're sleeping. The bathroom is usually just tiled, and then it has the toilet and the shower, which there's usually not like a shower curtain or anything. You just squeegee the water out and everything in the whole bathroom gets wet, but it's not a big deal. Always wear your flip-flops everywhere. Never let your feet touch Paraguay, ever. just for the bugs, just in case, you never know. I usually didn't have too many bugs in my apartments, but sometimes we had like cockroaches and spiders. One time there was a scorpion under my companion's bed, but we smashed it, so it was okay. And for transportation,
And there's a couple cities in the mission, so you might use buses. We usually used them when we were moving from one area to another, so going to district conferences or district meetings, or visiting the mission home, we would go on a bus. There's the city buses, and then every time you move an area, you get on a bigger bus, like a tour bus, where they put your suitcase underneath and you go all around town. There are a few areas with bikes, not very many. I never used a bike. I walked everywhere, so make sure you get really good shoes. The streets, and most of the streets in Argentina and Paraguay are either going to be just dirt, or they're going to be these streets called empedrados, which are basically like someone took a sledgehammer to a boulder, crushed it up into rocks about this big, that are all like sharp and spiky, and then just made a street out of them. So you're just kind of like walking like this on all these sharp rocks, and when it rains, it pours. So all of the dirt streets are then going to be mud or like puddles. So you kind of be like wading a little bit. Sometimes to my ankles, I would walk through the water. But at least on the empedrados, when it rains, you don't get covered in mud. You just walk on wet rocks. So that was slightly better in the rain. Argentina is infamous for the number of holidays they have, which I think is over 30. So every time there's a holiday, everything closes down and everyone just takes the day off. At least in my experience, I don't know. And so that kind of made the work hard for us. It was either really good because people were available to talk, or they were having a big barbecue and a party and they didn't want to see us. But there are lots of fun holidays, like lots of dances and cultural events that are part of the culture, which is really fun to be a part of and to be included in that. In Argentina, they have hand signals that they use a lot, which I really enjoy. One of them is this, which is like, ¿Qué pasa? What are you doing? Or there's this one, which means I don't know. Let's see. The people in general in both Paraguay and Argentina are really friendly. They love Americans. They think it's cool that you're there. They want to talk to you. Most everyone is Catholic in the areas where I served. There are quite a few Christians too as well, but the majority are Catholic, and they have lots of like Mary is a big deal, the Saint Mary. So one of the hardest things with the members is that you go to their house every day for lunch, and then they just want to chat with you all afternoon during the siesta. But you kind of have to keep the balance between being friends with them, but also telling them, hey, we need to go out and do work. And so we would try to leave lunch and go out and meet with people. It was sometimes hard because everyone would be sleeping. And so oftentimes we would go tracting. If we could have appointments, that was always the best option. We tried to keep it creative, looking for people who are just out walking during the siesta or open doors during the siesta. Just kind of looking for anyone that's available and is not sleeping. The school system in my areas was not very strong, especially in some of my areas in Paraguay. About everyone over the age of 30 can't read or write, which makes it kind of hard for giving assignments in the Book of Mormon. You have to read to them. So reading becomes a big part of what we do as missionaries because they've never really had a lot of experience being able to directly hear from the scriptures. And it's one thing to read it to them, but when you read, you also need to help them interpret what it means, because the reading comprehension skills aren't quite what we're used to. So we usually go through like each phrase and each word and help them understand. And you can kind of see the light bulb go on when they start to get it and start to understand what the scriptures mean and start to feel the Spirit, which is really great.
When you get your pamphlet before you go on your mission with your letter saying you've been called to this mission, you get the booklet that says you should bring this, and all that. And at the time I was thinking, like, do I really need to bring all these clothing items and things like that? And so I had talked to a few people beforehand, and it didn't really help, but I guess after the mission, I realized exactly what I needed. And just depending on where you are on the mission, in the mission, actually it doesn't really depend that much on where you are. It's pretty much the same climate-wise. It's really hot and humid during the summer. Like, you will walk outside and you will be sweating. Or you will get out of the shower and you'll already be wet again with your own sweat. So that's a little difficult at times if you don't like that, but you get used to it. And the main thing was you want really thin white shirts, really thin short sleeve white shirts for when it's summertime. And then you want, a lot of people will wear sweaters over their white shirts, like members and missionaries. They'll wear sweaters, and when you go out just on a day when it's really cold, like during the winter, I guess the best way to explain it is it's really humid, so no matter how many layers you wear, you're usually going to be pretty cold because it just cuts through everything. But if you wear more, it's a little more comfortable. So if you wear like a long sleeve shirt and a sweater and like a pretty decent waterproof, thick kind of jacket, you're going to be pretty well off. And you'll want some waterproof shoes, whether it's summer or winter. Waterproof with good soles and good support for your foot, because you're walking all day, every day. They don't have cars there unless you're in the mission house, which you may use cars every once in a while, but not really for your individual proselyting. So that's kind of about weather, because I was really confused about what it was going to be like weather-wise. It doesn't snow, just a lot of rain usually. And like I said, it can rain during summer anytime, and it can rain during winter anytime. And if you can find like a waterproof scripture carry case or something, because I would just put mine in like a plastic bag, like that's all I had. And it was super uncomfortable and awkward sometimes just to carry that around because it'd slip around and stuff. And you'd have to like undo it every time you talk to somebody to like pull out a pamphlet or something. But if you got really good waterproof stuff, that's what I'd recommend. And as for transportation, their buses there are like their airplanes. So you'll go to a big bus station and you'll get on these buses, and the chairs are super comfortable usually. They're like these big leather chairs if you get like the first class. And if you don't have first class, they're usually just cloth, but they're way nice. You usually have tons of room to sit on it, and it's pretty cool. I really liked it a lot. But the other buses that you take around the city that you put in little coins to go on, they're usually really crammed. There's a lot of people on them most of the times, depending on where you are. And don't expect the buses to come at like a specific time every time. You just kind of get there and wait for when it shows up, because it totally depends. And they have taxis and they have remises. And taxis are like more official, I guess, and usually more reliable. Remises are guys that kind of just like use their own cars, and they are part of this corporation. And it's kind of like you call them and whoever's available will just come and get you. And if they recognize you're like American or you can't speak Spanish good, sometimes they'll try to like gyp you out of your money and say like, oh, that'll be 20 pesos, when really it was just like around the corner and should only be 5. So just be aware of that. Sometimes people are dishonest with that. With regards to being safe on the mission, anything could happen to like any missionary. That's what I always told myself. Like, you'd hear a story of crazy things happening to one elder or something like that, but it wasn't too frequent. I mean, there's a lot of sometimes close calls of crazy things maybe happening, but I guess the rule of thumb and the way to like protect yourself and make sure you were in good places at the right time was really just following the Spirit. Because if you were in a wrong place at the wrong time, you'd normally have a feeling like we shouldn't be here or we should leave. And that happened a few times. But they have a lot of places where they're just the more poor areas, and you usually didn't go there too much at night because that's where most of the crime does happen. But those are called the Vishas, and they're just kind of like back alleys that go on forever. Like there's alleys and little alleys, and the walkways are super narrow, so like maybe two people could walk side by side. And there's just tons of houses, and they're kind of run down, but everybody has a DirecTV satellite on their house. And it's just kind of funny. The lifestyle of living there is a little different. But just staying away from those places at night time usually, unless you have a solid lesson with like either a member or a good investigator that you're going to go teach. But I would say just praying a lot for your own protection and the protection of your companion helps. And yeah, I won't tell too many stories, but like you'll have stories from your mission of situations when it might have been a little more risky than you wanted it to be or intended it to be. But in the end, if you're doing what's right and you're obedient to times and hours of when you need to be out and when you need to be in and stuff like that, you'll be fine.
They have supermarkets just like we do here in the States. However, one unique thing they have is in the neighborhood, since a lot of people don't have cars to carry groceries, and I think it's just a custom that they've been following a while, is they have these smaller stores called kioscos, and you can go there and get basic things like milk, bread, and crackers, cookies, and maybe some basic hygiene supplies as well, toilet paper, paper towels, just things like that as well, that you can go, and if you just need to make a quick run to this kiosco to get some juice or just things like that. If you're just on your way home to the apartment and you need to get something real quick, they have these convenient little kioscos, these little stores that they have scattered throughout the neighborhoods. But if you want to go do like some bigger shopping and just load up, then come back to your apartment, which sometimes if you get enough, you might want to take a taxi, or sometimes in Argentina they have these cars that aren't called taxis, they're called remises, and they're different because like they don't have to be painted a certain color and like display necessarily like that they're like the city taxi or that they're a taxi company, but they're still like part of this little business, and like they'll get radioed in. But getting back to the shopping, like it can if you have enough things, you might want to just take a little taxi or remise back to your apartment from a larger store. For doing internet, they have places called they call them cybers, like, which would be spelled kind of like cyber, where you can go to they have computers there, and it's not too expensive at all, really. You just go on there and you take your like your assigned mission time to use the computers, and then it's pretty modern, up to date in that respect. They have post offices in Argentina. Their postal system is actually pretty good in Argentina. If you're out in a rural community, like, then maybe it might take a while for your letter to get back home, but usually Argentina's mail system is pretty good, and things get back home pretty quick. And so yeah, those are some things to know just about like your P days and things. They do have, in certain areas, they have full-size malls in Argentina, like in Rosario. They have this place called, they had a supermarket, and they had some other things besides food as well called Jumbo. And they had also this other big, it's kind of like a Home Depot place called Easy, and then on another level, they just had like a mall. So like they have, those types of places in the bigger cities, that if you need to go do other types of shopping and want something like that to look around, they do have that. And so, but yeah, they have other services. You can find, I got my shoes repaired In Argentina, at least once, maybe twice, I've took my shoes in to get some new soles on them, and then they sew the new sole on the bottom, and it works real good. And you can go that route if you don't want to get a brand new pair of shoes.